Hello. So now I'm going to introduce to you the muscles for Anatomy and Physiology lab. Here you'll see most of the models that we have, and this is where most of your questions for the final are going to come from models that look very similar like this. You have the head and neck, you have the arm, you have the leg, you have the chest and abdomen, chest, abdomen, and back on these two models. Your first goal, before you really get into studying all of these muscles and all the origins, insertions, actions, and innervations for them, is to figure out where each muscle is. So when you're in the lab, or when you're in the SLC, or when you're in an area that has these models, like the classroom, your goal is to figure out if somebody points to something, you know what the name of that muscle is. The reason for that is because all the extra information, and the reason that muscles are difficult is you need to know that this is the masseter before you get into the origin, which would be the zygomatic, the insertion, the mandible, its action elevates the jaw, and its innervation, trigeminal. Before you get into all that other information, you need to know that what is this name? What's this called? What is this called? And what is that called? The reason why that's important is because if you spend all your time looking at the models and studying the models, have somebody point to something, you automatically say the name of the muscle. Because when you get home, you can make note cards that have the origin, insertion, action, innervation on them, which through repetition, they'll be much easier for you to memorize. Or you can print out the sheets that are on the PowerPoints, and then you can study it just by glancing at it from time to time, and through that repetition, memorizing what the origin, insertion, action, and innervation is. And in all these muscles, the origin, insertion, action, innervation is the same. Meaning, the origin is always going to be the stationary bone. The insertion is always going to be the bone that's going to move. So if you have something on the trunk, most of your arm muscles are going to have an origin up here and an insertion on the humerus, or the upper arm. For the leg, the hip and the top of the femur are going to be most of the origins, and then the femur and tibia and fibula are going to be the insertions, depending on where it's coming from and where it's going to. Then you have the action. Studying the basic actions is really important, because if you study what most of the actions are by moving your arm away or moving it towards your body, is abduction and adduction. And if you always think about that, if you're in a mall or a park or something, and somebody steals your child or steals your friend, they abducted you. So abduction is always going to be removing or taking away. Adduction is always going to be moving back. And the reason why knowing the basic actions, like flexion, extension, and then those, is if you just pick up this right here, and it's kind of like this, all you're going to do is flex. So all of these on the back are just flexing different parts of the leg. So knowing what the actions are and knowing what the origin means and what the insertion means, if you're in trouble or if you're blanking out during the test, you can come up with origins, actions, and and insertions pretty quickly. The one you need to spend a lot of time on and memorize is the innervation, and that's what nerve innervates that particular muscle. The head is pretty easy because the ones on all the front are going to be superficial that we're going to learn, so all of those are going to be the facial along with the occipitalis on the back. The ones on the side are all going to be trigeminal, and the one in the neck is going to be the accessory or the spinal accessory nerve. So, and all the muscle groups are all going to be innervated by the same nerve. So if you kind of look at where each individual muscles are, you'll start seeing what muscles and what nerve innervates those muscles. They're always going to be pretty close to each other. So with all of this information and with all of these models, muscles are going to be difficult, but if you take your time and study one model at a time, one muscle group at a time, this will be a lot easier to do. Good luck.